Hey Gearheads, thanks for tuning in. Don't worry, I'm not driving anywhere. Still not old enough to. I noticed there's this weird hole in the dash. My dad says he wants to install a stereo system here. Of course he does. He wants to install a radio called the USA 230. I mean, how American is that? Let's see how it turns out. Hey Dan, run that intro.
Do you hear that? Me neither. What we don't hear is a stereo system. Now, this thing had some antiquated old wiring, radio, speakers, everything was just old in it. I don't even know if it worked. But we're going to start from scratch. We're going to pull everything out. We're going to put all brand new speakers in. We're even going to put a sub and an amp in the back. If you know me or seen my show, you know I even put a subwoofer in my Camry. So, to get started, we're going to pull the stereo out, pull all the speakers out, and show you what I got planned for it. So this is not a quality speaker. It may be an original speaker. It's got a bunch of numbers on the back. It's a decent sized magnet, but this definitely needs to be replaced. So we're going to move on with the rest of the removal of the stereo. So this is a realistic head unit, which means it's from Radio Shack. It's an auto reverse tape deck, which I don't even think they make tapes anymore. But the good news is this vehicle made it through the 80s and 90s without being cut open for a DIN radio, which is the big rectangle one that everybody had back then. So that's good. That means I can take that out. I can put a stock looking radio in, and I don't have to worry about the dash being cut out or anything like that. Even though it's an 84, and you know we don't care about originality too much on it, but I do like to keep things as stock as possible. And that's just going to make for a neater looking interior when it's all done. So let's go ahead and pull it out and see what the wires look like. Here's another lesson in removing items in your way if you can get them out without breaking them, so you can do an easier job on what you're working on. Alright, so not the easiest thing to get out, but it's out of our way, so. Okay, so that went pretty well. So this radio is really old. Probably great in its heyday. I don't know what the year on this thing is, but it's definitely old. It says 1937. No, I'm just kidding. That's the model number. Anyhow, it is really old, and I'm glad to have it out. I mean, the wiring that was done on this thing with household wire nuts, this rear speaker cord is zip cord. This is what you use to like build a lamp inside your house. So not speaker cable. Of course, everything is taped together, and there's crimp connectors that are just sitting around. There was a ground wire that was actually just like put through a hole and twisted. So not the way we're going to install it, the new stereo anyway. So I'm going to clean up some more wires, and then I'm going to show you what we got to replace all this stuff that we took out. So this is the system we got going in the truck. Of course, you got to start with the radio. And this truck has actually made it through its entire life without having the dash cut up. So I didn't want to cut it up and put one of those newfangled DIN radios in it. So I actually just went to Custom Autosound, and I bought one of their USA models. This is a USA 230. It's the lowest one, but it has all the features you need. So it does have RCA out, so you can put a subwoofer in there. It's got auxiliary in, so you can run your iPod or your phone or whatever. It's got all the regular stuff, the antenna, the plugs for the speakers and everything. Looks like a stock radio, but when you turn it on, it's got a digital readout here, so you can see everything you're doing. So it's a really cool radio. Looks stock, but it's going to perform like a new radio. So that's going to be the start. Of course, we got knobs and everything for that, and all the wiring. For the front speakers, I'm going to stick with the 3.5s. I got these Kenwoods. I really like Kenwood. They're really good speakers. You can see these magnets are almost as big as the speaker itself, so this is going to perform really well. It does just have a paper cone for the tweeter. I'm not entering any stereo contest, but the ones that had separate tweeters, the ones that had separate tweeters were really high, and I wouldn't be able to fit the dash cover on. So I opted for this. It's a little lower profile, but this should work just fine. For the backs, I was able to get these original speaker mounts for it that mount in the back corner of the cab, and they are 4x10s. I know 6x9s are more popular, but honestly, if you're buying a new speaker, there's probably not going to be much difference. So we're going to go with 4x10s. These are actually Pyles, so they should perform just as good as we need to. And then what I'm going to do with wiring is I'm going to put this where the cigarette lighter was. I guess we don't really call them cigarette lighters anymore, we call them charge ports for our cell phones. So this actually has a USB charging port, and it'll have the 3.5mm so I can plug my phone into it, or an iPod, or any kind of music source, and that'll go directly into the radio. That way I don't have wires hanging under the dash or anything like that. We got the power supply for the USB, and I got an extra cable that'll plug the USB and the 3.5 in, and then I can plug that directly into my cell phone. That way I can go ahead and charge it up and listen to music while I'm driving. And I think that's pretty much it. Oh, the subwoofer. Now, you didn't think I was going to go without a sub on this, did you? If you haven't seen my episode on the Camry putting a subwoofer in it, you got to check that out. I'll put a card up here, or I don't know how that works, but I'll put a card up. Check out that episode. It's pretty cool. I put a subwoofer in everything. I'm a stereophile. I love music. I'm a musician. So I definitely had to have some kind of subsystem. I've actually had this amp around probably longer than half of my viewers, but it's a great amp. So I'm going to do this three-way, so it'll be powering both 4x10s, and I'm going to mono bridge it to this sub. I got a Sony Xplod 1200 watt 12-inch subwoofer, and this really neat box that I'm hoping will fit behind the rear seat. It's actually not carpeted like most boxes. It's basically like MDF, but then they covered it in like underbody bed liner type of stuff. So it's nice and rough, and I actually got one that just has a single 12, and it's just blank here. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and mount the amp up here, and that way I'll have everything kind of taken care of in one piece, and we'll go ahead and lock it down. So that's pretty much it for what's going into it. Let's get started with the install. First thing I need to do is clean this dashboard. It's pretty nasty. And then I'm going to go ahead and start on the radio wiring. Alright, so these are the three stock wires for the radio. I traced them and found this yellow one is the radio switched. This gray one in the middle is for the dash light. And the black one here is for the ground. So there was no power wire, so I'll just run a power straight to the fuse block, and then we'll go ahead and wire all those wires up to start with. I want to show you guys something I realized with these heat shrink tubings. If you start shrinking the whole thing first before you try to melt the solder, it actually works a whole lot better and it melts quicker, especially these smaller ones. So you kind of go back and forth, melt the whole thing. That seals it, kind of seals the oxygen out, and then you just concentrate on the middle ring about an inch or so away. And with no oxygen in there, or air I guess, it just seems to flow a whole lot better. So if you're using these, this is the way to do it. Seal the outside first, then head for the middle. And then just hold it until it dulls and make sure it's all sealed. And it doesn't have to melt completely, that middle ring. It's nice if it does, but it doesn't have to. And you can see how dull that is. Then you can always tug on it to make sure it's a good connection after it's dried. Heat shrink, water seal, solder, water seal, heat shrink, all in one shot. Nice and good connection, soldered, no crimp connectors. It's the right way to do it. So I bought this thick speaker wire. I got a deal on it, so I bought it. I know we don't need that, especially for these 3.5s, but since I have it, I'm going to use it. And we'll go ahead and run it through the dash all the way up to the speaker hole, and then we'll be able to zip tie it and make it nice and neat and wire up the speakers later. You also want to keep track of what your positive and what your negative is, because it does matter on the speaker end. I usually use silver for positive and brass for negative, or if your speaker wire has writing on it, sometimes you can use the writing as the positive. Either way, just make sure you have it the same way on both speakers and radio. Alright, got the speaker wired up, so I'm just going to send the wire through, and we'll mount the speaker, and then we'll go ahead and attach the wires after. We'll run them through the dash and get them attached to the stereo. This magnet is so big, it's hard to get the speaker down where it needs to be. Alright, so I just plugged the two connectors into radio for the front speakers, the power, and the antenna. And we're going to do our first test. Ooh, look at that display. So now you can see when it's off, that's what it'll look like. So it'll look like a stock radio. So if you are at a car show or something and you're not in it, look like original radio, no one will want to steal it. But when you turn it on, display shows right through. Now the great thing about this radio looking stock but being newer is that it's got ports here for auxiliary in. It's just RCA, and it goes to 3.5 millimeter, which I'll show you what we got planned for that here with those other wires. But for now, I'm just going to plug in a little iPod adapter, and we're going to plug my phone into it and turn it back on. And now I'll turn the radio on. There it is. And then we're going to hit the auxiliary button and we're going to hit play. Sweet. You know, I usually get excited when you find things in old vehicles. Yeah, I'm not excited. Turns out there's ants living back here, which is good that I found them, but I need to find the main nest and get rid of them. I wanted to test fit this box in here before I pull out the rear seat and just see how it'll fit. See if it'll fit with the seat where it is. And it's looking like it won't. So let me see how far I need to adjust this seat. I'm gonna have to make some custom brackets for it, I guess. So there's not much room between the seat and the box, and I still have to put the amp in there. So you can see how far forward the seat is. And you can see here too, the spacing. So may not have a rear seat. And that's just moving the seat up 1 inch. So I'll make a bracket for that and adjust for that. And then the front, I think I can just push this bracket back 1 inch on the seat, and then it'll bolt back in the original place. I painted these mounts for the 4x10 speakers. They are going to be seen from the inside of the truck, so I wanted to make them look a little bit better than they did. I also located the holes for the mounts, so I can go ahead and put these clips on, and we'll get the speakers screwed on, and then we'll go ahead and install them in the cab. That way I'll be able to see the layout. We'll be able to know where the box needs to be for the speaker, and where the amp mount needs to be. Okay, so luckily my truck does have these top holes, so I know these speakers, or these types of speakers have been in here before. I got the third one right there, so I'm just going to go ahead and mark that. Kind of so I know where it is. Kinda, sorta. And then what I'd like to do is get this bottom one in first. That'll be the hardest to locate. If I can get that started, then I can get these tops and I can move them around to where I need to. If your truck doesn't have these holes, you can always just use self-tappers and go through the metal. That worked just fine. Alright, that's good enough to know the placement of where I can put the box. I got the other one in, I got this one in, so we'll go ahead and put the box in here on this side, and then we'll put the amp over there and see how it looks. So I pushed the box all the way to the passenger side, just up to where the bolt is going to be for the rear seat, and I don't have enough room in between the two of these for the amp. So it looks like I'm going to have to push the box all the way over, which means it's going to be on top of the rear seat bolt, which should be fine. I don't really have a choice, do I? So if I push that all the way over, then I just have enough room to mount the amp. That should work. So as we know, that big box didn't work because My original plan was to put the amplifier on the box, but there wasn't enough clearance to the back seat. So I was going to move the back seat forward, so I did have clearance for it, but it wouldn't work that way. So then I was just going to put the box to the side and put the amp next to it and just build a little wedge box for the amp. And that didn't work because now the box was too big and it was kind of in the way. So I ended up returning that box. I have a single 12-inch subwoofer box coming that'll be a lot smaller, and I'm going to mount the amp on this. So I kind of took the idea from that I had before, and with the box that I had that had the undercoating on it. So what I did is I just made my own little wedge box, and I'm going to mount the amp on this. I pre-drilled some holes for the connectors to go on, and we're going to mount the amp just on it like this. The wires will go through. This will sit next to the speaker box. We'll have plenty of clearance for everything. It'll look nice and neat, and we'll be in good shape. So I'm going to take this and go ahead and spray it with undercoating. Hopefully that'll make it look cool and kind of blend in, and then we'll go ahead and install this in the speaker box. So I know it's a little hard to see, so I'll kind of zoom in on some of these and let you get a better angle. But got everything mounted up in the rear. So I got the 4x10s on their plates that I painted. I have the amp mounted on this custom amp rack that I made. And then I have the 12-inch put into a shallow box, and it all fits behind the rear seat, kind of. So the 4x10s, just mounted them to these plates that are stock plates. I just painted them, and we got them mounted in here nice. And with these grills, they'll be nice and protected. This amp rack, I actually just made it out of some board that I had laying around. I cut it, I drilled holes so the wires go into it, got everything coming out of the back. I do have it mounted into the truck, so it's not going to go anywhere. The speaker, I just put in a shallow box. It was too shallow for the speaker, but I already had the speaker, so I just went ahead and put this expansion ring on it. And then I did put a grill on it also to protect it, which doesn't really fit behind the rear seat, but it's good enough for now. Now the best part is this original looking radio. It looks like it has the original AM numbers in there, but when you turn it on, it actually has a digital display to show you what's going on. And even better, I hit auxiliary, and this is probably my favorite part. Inside the ashtray area, instead of a cigarette lighter, we have a port that we can plug directly into the radio, and also has a USB port so we can charge our cell phones. So I know it's hard to hear radio on a video depending on what kind of system you're using to listen to this video on, but trust me when I tell you it sounds great inside the truck, and that's really all that matters. So there's many more videos coming up on this Ram truck build, so if you're interested, go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell, and I'll see you on the next one.
Well, that's it for this episode. You can leave comments below, give this video a thumbs up, and make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell so you get notifications when new videos are uploaded.
Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Until then, stay positive, keep on wrenching. Is this a sign? Yeah, get it? Is this a sign? It is. High voltage, keep out. I pre-painted these mounts for the 4x10s. They are going to be... I pre-painted these mounts... I painted these mounts for the 4x10 speakers for the back of the truck. They are going to be seen whenever I lift the, lean the seat forward. I gotta think about what I'm saying before I say it. Making myself laugh now. I painted these mounts for the what are these? 4x10s. On this Ram truck build, some stuff I'm doing to it is really cool.